have a story to tell you. Throughout high school and university, I gave all my time to studying. And then I entered the work world, and all my mental energy went to work and providing my employer with a good service. And eventually I learned to work for myself. That's what I do now. And it was about making ends meet and paying the bills. And then I had my daughter, and it was about making sure that she had everything she needed while I continued to pay the bills. And eventually, if you look at what I did over the course of my life, at every turn, the answer was take the easy way, right? I wanted to do what was simplest, but that meant that when it came to doing what was going to be good for myself, I ended up eating fast food, junk food, and frozen dinners because all my energy was going to doing the work stuff and life stuff. So when life is super stressful, we encounter something called, decision fatigue, but we have it no matter what. From the beginning of our day when we wake up until the end of our day when we go to sleep, we are constantly making decisions. And we make our best decisions in the morning when we first wake up. And as our day progresses and our brain fatigue sets in, so does our ability to make a good decision. So our decisions get increasingly more poor as we go through the day. Now, if you're stressful at work, like I was, if you're stressful in school, like I was, if you have a lot of stuff that you're doing that's really important and you can't get it wrong, well, then your fatigue in your decisions actually starts to happen faster and faster. And what you'll notice is that throughout what I said at the beginning, I wasn't focusing on my emotional needs. I was focusing on work, raising my daughter, and work. And that's me focusing on what's supposed to happen instead of what was going to make me happy. And in fact, when I started to think about the things that were making me happy, it was the activities that I like to do. It was spending time with my daughter. It was something simple like taking her to school in the morning. That made me really happy. I liked that time versus putting her on a school bus, for example. It started to become really obvious to me. And I think most people would say this is the truth, but that working less was what was going to make me happy. Now, when you work less, you make less money. So if I'm making less money, then it means that the things that I was doing wouldn't be the same. And you know what was interesting? I actually like my smaller house. And I think what was really pivotal for me about how I got to that place was that I made that decision when I was clear-headed, not overly stressed, and I made that decision when I was well-rested, clear-headed, and truly thinking about what was going to make me happy. And I started to focus on the things that actually were happening when I was happy. I made the decision out of action, what I was going to do, rather than out of reaction, what I wasn't liking about my life. There are two parts to this that we need to think about. Because part of it is about planning in advance and knowing what you want and what's coming up. We get caught up in comparing ourselves to others. That whole idea of fear of missing out. That if they get a new car, I got to get a new car. If they got the latest phone, I have to have the latest phone. And I really want us to think about the fact that harms us in terms of what we're trying to accomplish for our own personal happiness. And is it really going to make me happy that I have what Tom or John or Susie has? And if I'm working and spending all my time working to get what Tom or John or Susie has, but I'm not enjoying my life, does that matter? And so if you're constantly working instead of feeding yourself properly, if you have so much inflammation that you can't sit in a chair or walk normally or do the activities you love, which is, if you know me, you know that was part of my story. If you shy away from dating and social activities because your weight is not what you want it to be. And so you're not feeling attractive. So now you're spending most of your time alone. If you're not feeling happy with your life, with your physical appearance, with the things that you can do, with the way your body's functioning, are those things really going to help you to feel happier? And I honestly feel like the answer is no. But the icing on the cake is that a lot of the times I will talk to people and realize that they don't even like their evenings because all the focus that they were doing all day long was giving to others and not giving to themselves. And then by the end of the day, they have so little energy. And I remember doing this. I had so little energy by the end of my day that I end up watching TV. And a lot of people tell me that their day ends with them on their own watching TV or watching TV with their spouse. And it's because that's all the energy that they have left. And it's also because the time they end up going to bed after putting the kids to bed and everything they needed to do, there really wasn't much time to do much else. And you feel like you're wasting your life, right? Because eventually you just hate being in that position where that's all you're doing. And the question is, what would you rather be doing? And what I would rather be doing, right, is taking care of your mental health. And I have to say that the year that I bought this longboard, it was the best decision I ever made. I hadn't been on a board. I hadn't skated. I don't even know for how long I hadn't done that. And I went on a whim. I was walking through the store. I saw it. It said beaches on the back. And I was like, that's kind of cool looking. And I just bought it. And it meant, in order for me to ride, because at that point in time, I was the only one in the family that had one, I had to find time to go riding on my own. So I got time to myself, first of all, something that I hadn't had. I think by the time I bought this, my daughter was maybe she was 10 by the time I bought it. And seriously, being off doing something by myself, I hadn't had. And it meant also eventually that I bought one for my daughter. So then we were doing a fun activity together. Prior to that, her activities were, they still were after I bought that, but she was doing gymnastics, she was doing swimming, but those were not things that I was doing with her. Those were things that she was doing with her friends and I enrolled her in. So our time together was so much less. I also bought myself other things. I got a guitar. I got a Swiftie, which is the scooter on top. And I got some more tools. And I started creating things in that cabinet that you see. I built that. And I put it in my office. And all of these things gave me something to do, either by myself or with my daughter, because I had a scooter, she had a scooter. Sometimes she'd ride her bike or she'd ride her scooter and I would ride the scooter. I play music. Sometimes she'd tell me to stop playing, making too much noise. But, it's just fun things that I ended up doing because I decided after getting this longboard and realizing how much fun that was, I need to invest more in myself. I need to invest more in being happy with what I'm doing at the end of my day. And we help ourselves when we do that because it gives us something to look forward to other than working and then working and then working. And, we spend so much time taking care of our families and not taking care of ourselves. And what that ends up meaning for you is that we go back to poor decisions that we make at the end of the day. So let's look at that for a second, those bad decisions. Those decisions will be even worse if you're unhappy with your life. Because when you're unhappy, we then make decisions that are quick, looking for a positive. So the quick fix that I want it now, I want to feel good right now. And that usually leads us to comfort food. So I worked all day, I was stressed. I get home with the kids and maybe the kids are fun, but they're still stressful because I need to get them in bed and ready for tomorrow because even if my kids are in daycare, I still need to get up. and they need their amount of sleep. If my kids are older, I need to go to work, they need to go to school. If my kids are even older, I need to go to work, but I need to help them with homework, and I need to get them to bed so I can go to school, right? I have to make supper. I have to clean up the kitchen. I need to prep lunch for tomorrow. And then you got to get the kids in the shower and off to bed. And then any other chores that you might possibly have to do. And next thing you know, it's really late at night. And the only thing you have energy for, again, is to watch TV. Translation, you're bored. And what happens? You eat. So comfort eating. And maybe your spouse reminds you about your goals. And depending on how they remind you, that could feel good because you think they're taking care of you, or that could be frustrating because you're feeling picked on, which then could lead to more comfort food and eating. But hopefully you feel encouraged, and it helps you to think about what it is that you really want to do and how you really want to feel, and how are we going to accomplish these things. Now, the question I have for you is, do you snack? Right? And that's the first thing that I want us to think about. When we're planning for ourselves, we need to think about, what are the things I'm trying to solve? And one of the things I want you to look at is, if I do snack, what am I eating? So what foods do I find healthy or not healthy? Bonus words. Put it in the comments and in the chat. What foods do you find healthy in this image that I have in the photo? Is there anything on there that you wouldn't eat? Actually, is really what I want to know. Is there anything on there that you wouldn't eat? And the question also I have for you is, do you eat unhealthy foods? Like, when I'm looking at planning myself for my day, my week, what are the goals I have for myself? What is the quality of the ingredients that I allow into the foods that I eat? The oils, the sources of sugars, the amount of sugars. Now, planning my meals in advance is going to help me because, and it's going to help you because you're making the decision before decision fatigue sets in. If I know, let's say Sunday morning, I'm going to get up and I'm going to sit down and just write out, okay, this week, what am I eating? And I'm fresh and I can look forward to planning it well and know that I'm making a good decision because now I can go shopping Sunday afternoon and get all the ingredients I need for the things I'm going to make over the week. The chance that I, A, make what I said, and B, make healthy things has just improved dramatically. But the other thing I'm going to point out is that if I plan the whole week, even plan the weekend. Am I going out? If I'm going out, where am I going? What kind of restaurants do I let myself eat at? What kind of foods do I choose? If I plan even not the knowledge of, if I go to a restaurant, what kind of things am I allowing myself to purchase? It allows me to make that good decision when I'm fresh and I know that I'll be making a decision based on what's better for me. If I get invited to a friend's house, this is the other thing that we need to think about, is planning, how will I manage my interaction with my friend? And what kind of questions am I asking my friend? And going back to what quality of ingredients that I use, what kind of questions will I ask my friend to help me to better understand what I'm trying to do? So am I going to eat before I go to my friend's house? Am I going to bring my food with me to my friend's house? Or can I negotiate with my friend that they're making the food in a way that I feel comfortable? I want us to think about something. If you had allergies, none of us would have any problem being this specific with a friend or with a restaurant about what we can and cannot eat. But for some reason, if you don't have allergies, we feel like we are not allowed to be clear on what we are allowing in our own bodies. And I want us to move away from that idea. I want you to prioritize your health over the taste of any food. And I want you to make sure that you're living your life in a way that you want, with a body that's healthy and able to do what you want. And a lot of this comes very much down to what am I allowing myself to eat? Because if I eat poorly, I create a poor quality body. I'm going to struggle to be able to do the things that are going to make me happy because I can't use my body the way I want to, because I'm in pain all the time. That was my story. Because it's just more difficult when you're not feeling well. Your health is the most important thing that you're ever going to have. So let's take care of it. Today's comment of the day is coming from Maggie Kelly. 13 days ago. It says, "Hello, Violet. Maggie from Valencia, Spain here, thanking you for this most excellent explanation of midnight mistake munchies." That's going back to the video about decision fatigue and why we eat late at night. "The nutritionist I consult calls it emotional eating. After listening to you, I think I understand." And what I want to go on to say from that comment is that a lot of the times we're told that we're eating emotionally, and then the nutritionist, the doctor, the psychologist, the whoever doesn't walk forward and help us understand what to do about it. Like today, I went through what to do about it. It's not just about saying I have to hold my hands together really hard and try not to pick up the cookie. You need to decide in advance what kind of eating you're going to allow yourself to do. And you need to allow yourself to see that every decision I make impacts my health. And if I do those two things, there's a good chance that I'm going to do better for myself. Well, Warriors, I'm so happy you come back, and I want to thank you for watching Mind Blowing Mondays. I can't wait to talk to you guys again next week.